Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute, a podcast where we are breaking down and celebrating the Gene Wilder film, Young Frankenstein, one irritated scolding, better keep your mouth shut about the 7 or 8 quick ones, new love at a time. I'm Alan Sanders.
And I'm Walt Murray.
And joining us for the very first time today, even though we're toward the very end of the movie, he is joining us for the first time on Young Frankenstein. We have David Smith. David, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Great to have you joining us here on our podcast. And you actually have your own co-host of a Movies by Minutes podcast, a very funny series in and of itself. You've got the Airplane podcast.
Yeah, my friend Matt and I do the Airplane Minute podcast. In fact, we just wrapped up our first season because Airplane is quite a bit shorter than Young Frankenstein at only 88 minutes. So we finished up recording, and we're glad to take a little bit of a break because even though we recorded a whole bunch to start with, it was down to the wire there to get the last ones done in time.
Funny. I've heard
the schedule.
I think we can relate.
I've heard that from other people, and so we said, let's just get 40 in the can, and I think I now have about a 12-show buffer, and I still have a couple of weeks left to go. So, yeah, I think everybody gets to that point. We did something stupid, Dave. We totally forgot things like Mother's Day. It's probably not a good day to schedule a guest in recording. Father's Day, daughter graduation, high school graduation, things like that.
Wife's birthday.
Wife's birthday. All the unimportant things.
Yeah. And you guys are a lot better at scheduling guests. Like, you've got a whole system set up. Like, I didn't even break the movie down into minute chunks and put it up on the web for a long time, and then just trying to get guests. So we didn't even have guests for quite a bit of our shows. And we still barely squeaked it out.
This is the mild anxiety disorder that I have whenever I approach a project. Is I have a background in project management. I figured if I don't have everything like on a spreadsheet and scheduled and put out there, I know I'll screw that piece up. So I left all that for Walt, and then he went and screwed up the scheduling part.
and see, I wasn't using my sticky note system, so
Your highly organized sticky note system. That's awesome.
So things got all out of whack.
Well, it's all the pizza grease that you keep getting on them. So.
That's right, and coffee.
In coffee states.
Well, Dave, I have to tell you, Airplane is one of my favorite movies. So I actually just started listening recently. I'm really looking forward to getting into the Airplane Minutes because, like I said, since I was a kid, I remember seeing it in the theater. It has been one of my favorite movies ever since. And Leslie Nielsen is amazing in that movie.
I just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.
Yeah, it's great just talking about that movie and having people on who, like you and I, just have loved it since we were kids.
Well, let's go ahead and start this minute number 96. We're starting off the work week here. And in minute 96, we continue with where we left off Friday with Elizabeth and the creature having, well, they've enjoyed each other's company, and she seems to be purring now, when suddenly the creature at the beginning of this minute hears something that's causing him to lose his focus on her. So Elizabeth starts off with, what is it? And it will end with Dr. Frankenstein playing violin on the rooftop with one of the biggest megaphones I've seen in Transylvania.
And one of the strangest instruments you'll ever see.
With Igor?
Igor.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Let's start off here at the very beginning, because we had a couple of lady listeners who crawled me over the carpet once or twice, not just in the our listeners group, but we even had Julia Ingham of the Mad Max Minute tell me that, no, Elizabeth does not play around behind Dr. Frankenstein. She does not have boy toys on the side. She just is a socialite. I have a hard time buying that when we get to this minute because of the lines that were actually added to the script. They were not part of the original script that they went to go shoot. They actually gave Madeline Kahn, or she gave herself, additional lines. So, Dave, let me pull you into the conversation first. Was Madeline Kahn's character from the very beginning of the movie, when she didn't want anything to do with Freddy, is it because she was using him as a socialite move only and she had plenty of action on the side, or is she, quote, still a virgin?
Wow, that I didn't see that coming. I never thought about it that way. I just always thought she was a rich, socialite that was very aloof, and I guess I thought she was a virgin. She was saving herself for marriage, the way she treats him when she first shows up at the castle.
And you know what? You may be right, because a couple of our listeners, like I said, didn't like my interpretation that she was only using Freddie as a move up the social ladder, being a successful doctor, but that she was still taking care of other needs with people that she found much more interesting, fascinating, or attractive than Gene Wilder.
All right. Well, that's an interpretation.
Well, here's why I come to that. Because of the lines that we add here, because it's supposed to end with, where are you going? And this is also a complete change. They've just left their FM station on, that's all, talking about the music coming from another cottage, just assuming the radio was left on, which would have, again, pulled us out of this mystique that we'd be reminded, oh, wait, we are in modern time. It's not, 1931 or, back how we've been talking this whole time. What she adds here is,
where are you going? You men are all alike. 7 or 8 quick ones and you're off with the boys to boast and brag. You better keep your mouth shut.
Oh, you men are all alike. 7 or 8 quick ones and you're off with the boys to boast and brag. You better keep your mouth shut. Then,
I think I love him.
Oh, I think I love him. So if she makes that statement to me, oh, you are all alike. All of you, every one of you I've ever run into, 7 or 8 quick ones, and then you're off to brag with the boys. Is that something a virgin says?
No, I don't think so. But I also still keep going back to, she is a very hollow, vapid person. What depth she has is selfish, but I do think it's interesting that they're kind of flipping the relationship here, because she was definitely wearing the pants in the relationship with Freddie. Now, here she is, as soon as the monster starts to get up, she's begging him to stay, and, oh, you're all alike. She's trying to manipulate him, and then as he walks out, I think I love him. And that is totally different from the way that she and Freddie have related to each other.
Oh, yeah. Well, before, all she's had was just physical relationships where she's been in charge, and it's the first time that she's actually had, like you said, tables turned on her.
So I think I agree with you that line kind of reveals her past. She clearly is not a virgin from that line. No, I haven't heard last week's shows yet, of course. I'm curious, have you guys talked about the rapiness of this whole scene?
Yes. You want to talk about the one episode that I felt like we were all walking a tightrope through the entire episode. That's that happened last week. We had Pete Mummert with us from the Indiana Jones Minute, and I think we handled it okay, because the one thing we were able to point back to and even got to Friday was she tried to take back control, and then it felt like Friday when we left, she was in control, because you see that they light the cigarettes, and she's like, penny for your thoughts, and so she's really into the monster, and then he makes that grumble, and she's like, oh, you're incorrigible, knowing, hey, he just wants to, nail her again. So we got the sense that there was a willingness on both sides, even though in our current climate of today, it is still a very uncomfortable thing to try to find comedy in versus, let's say, the 1974 audience that probably didn't see it nearly like we do today.
Yeah, I remember, I grew up with this movie. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious beginning to end. After college, I had a girlfriend, and I showed it to her, and she really got offended at the scene. First of all, that he takes her and forces himself on her, and then she likes it. And then she's like, that is a bad message to send young men, that if you force yourself on a woman, she'll like it.
I know.
And I was like, oh, wow, I never thought about it that way.
I know. It was so hard. Well, see, the thing is, and I didn't think about it like that the entire time I had ever seen it as a teenager in my young 20s. But now I've got 4 pretty much adult girls, 3 in college, 1 coming to be junior in high school. And Walt, you've got 3 daughters, 1 who just graduated high school, heading to college, and 2 right behind. So as dads, it suddenly became a very uncomfortable scene, no longer funny to us, even though we both understood why it's supposed to be funny.
I grew up, my family is Southern, even though I lived in the Midwest for a long time. So I kind of grew up with those Southern gentlemen, that mentality. So going through high school and college here in the South, that was just, you were respectful, and you were, I'm not going to paint myself as a beacon of morality at times, but no meant no. And I think that scene, yes, it is rapey and it's very uncomfortable. It was a tough couple episodes to get through, because I do see where they were going with the comedy, and understanding this was 1974, it was a different society, but it is a weird scene.
Dave, you said your girlfriend had a hard time with it as well. Did it ruin the movie for her? Did it weaken the overall impact of enjoying the experience of the entire film?
I think so. I mean, first of all, I don't think it was her style of humor to begin with. And
well, there's that.
And she was sensitive to those kinds of themes, and I actually learned a lot about sexism and things like that from her, being a young, inexperienced guy myself, though. So it was an eye-opening experience to learn from her. But yeah, I don't think she ever quite got into the movie.
And I'm sorry, I hate to hit. I get it. I also understand that, especially again in our current 21st century, the hashtag Me Too movement. It's tough,
of course,
to embrace. But this is cool here because it's in a funny movie. It's not. But we were able to, and you'll have to, for folks, if you're coming in this minute and you missed last week, if you go back, I think we handled it pretty well as I think you can, and move along. And here we are talking about it all over again.
Well, and there are other movies too, like Deliverance, which is a good movie, but man, it's got one of the worst horrifying scenes of any movie ever.
But that wasn't being played for comedy.
No, it wasn't. But
we're supposed to laugh at it.
Yeah,
I don't,
and that is a difference, but it could have soured you on that entire movie.
True.
If you don't just accept the fact that, yeah, this is a terrible, horrifying thing, and we move past it.
Well, the thing is, we get to the minute Friday before we get to this minute, because we've split halfway into this, what's happening with the monster in his lair that he somehow found a way to get all padded and nice and ready for Elizabeth to come visit. I guess his nesting instincts kicked in.
He's not an animal.
No, we did talk that Elizabeth felt like she was back in control. She enjoyed her experience, and it's obvious that they're both smoking a cigarette and talking about 7 has always been my magic number, or 7 has always been my lucky number. So we now know that it wasn't just a single incident where he kind of forced himself, or sort of, enamored. She was just kind of unable to say no, but after 7 times, at that point, you realize, okay, no, they both are into each other. And that's supposed to be the comedy, that here's this successful doctor that she's got absolutely no desire to be physical with at all. And here comes this strange, goofy-looking monster that somehow is able to make her, by the end of this scene we're talking about today, minute number 96, that even though she scolds him for leaving her, she actually goes, oh, I think I love him. So the relationship is very quick forming.
Yeah, it's a total change from what we've seen of her. Plus, she is wearing the Bride of Frankenstein hair, so she is almost transformed into a completely different character.
Well, we did talk about that as well, that could never really actually happen, but...
No, not that fast.
No, not that fast. Hair doesn't grow out that fast to show the gray at the temples like that. It is definitely the call out to Bride of Frankenstein, which is exactly what this is meant to do. Yeah. We'll even see her hairstyle coming up in further minutes next week, where it's exactly the knockoff of the follow-up to Frankenstein, the 1931 Frankenstein, the follow-up with the Bride of Frankenstein. Dave, were you familiar at all with the Universal monster movies before watching Young Frankenstein?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely got the reference to Bride of Frankenstein with the hair.
But what about Frankenstein just in general? Because Young Frankenstein here kind of borrows from, even though there's 5 technically that came beforehand, he borrowed from 4 of the main storylines to kind of a funny kludge together pieces of all these other Frankenstein movies to put in this movie. Were you familiar with the body of the work of the Frankenstein series?
Well, I don't know about 4 or 5 movies. I knew enough about the Frankenstein from either seeing the movie and or seeing various remakes and redos and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein and all that kind of stuff. So I was at least well grounded in the Universal monsters. And my dad liked that stuff, and he would tell me, "Oh, no, that's Lon Chaney. He's the Man of 1,000 Faces, and Boris Karloff." And so I knew the actors and the mythos, but I don't know that I knew like all 5 Frankenstein movies.
Let me ask you this then, because you list yourself on the biography because you've got a side job. It's like your job as a cinematographer, and having been in the film industry myself and having my own production company where I've got resources always around me. I look at films on multiple layers, not just story and character and acting. I do look at like composition and lighting and sound and all of those technical elements. From your perspective as a cinematographer, what do you think about the way they chose to go black and white with Young Frankenstein and make it look like an older movie?
I think that is one of the best parts of this movie. I know you guys talked about in the early episodes, and you just mentioned it again, how they chose to make it look like the old time horror movies, but yet it's still set in the 70s or whatever. And that's one thing I never caught growing up or watching this movie. I never realized that it was a modern movie made to look old. I thought it was supposed to take place in the 20s or the late 1800s or something. They really captured the spirit of these old movies, the way they have the credits, like all the credits in the beginning of the movie, you know, the music and the cinematography. And I think you guys said that they even used the actual lab set from the original movie.
Correct.
It's just fantastic. That aspect of the movie just shines all the way through. You know, as I've gotten older and watched this movie as an adult, you know, I'm like, okay, some of the jokes don't land as well as they did when I was a kid, but that cinematography and the set design, they just nailed it.
I'm a big fan of, it's an older school style of filmmaking compared to, you know, your Michael Bays and things like that. I like this movie so much because of that, because it makes me feel like I'm watching a timeless classic, not something that was just put out to be enjoyed for a year or two in the theater and then be, you know, relegated to distant memory.
And I like to be able to see a movie where the actors get to act and they're not depending on CGI and quick cuts and things like that. I really like, and we even see it in the latter part of this minute where they're playing their instruments up on the roof with that gigantic megaphone trying to draw the monster back. You have a 30, 40-second scene where there are no quick cuts, there's no nothing. It's just the actors doing their jobs and doing them well.
Yeah, Dave, as a cinematographer, is this, I mean, it's got to be different from today because we've got so many medium and even master type shots that they just play out the whole scene that way rather than going for a lot of inserts or point of view shots.
Yeah, it's true. They do like you said, they'll play out the whole scene in a 2 or 3 person master shot, which is definitely, like you said, Walt, it relies on the actors, because if you're not cutting away from bad takes and bad lines and stuff every couple of seconds, you know, you're relying on the actors to be on the top of their game throughout the scene. And that probably comes from stage acting. So a long time ago, a lot of these actors who early days of movies came from the stage, of course, and so they could do that. They knew how to do that. So that really helps sell the feel of this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've made that comment several times that they're not only good playing off of each other in terms of improv, but you get that sense that you could go back and watch some of these scenes with 4 and 5 people at once and realize I have to watch it 4 or 5 times because I can't watch every performance at the same time. So I can go back and watch, well, what's Igor doing this whole time? Well, what's Inga doing this whole time? Well, what's the monster doing this whole time? What is Frau Bluka doing this whole time? And I love that about the movie. For me, that's what gives it sort of that rewatchability, because I catch things as many times as we've seen it. Although now that we've done it a minute at a time, I think we've caught a lot. But it allows us to see those things in rewatching.
Well, and when I listen to like the ID10T podcast or I Was There Too, or you know, one of the others where they're interviewing people who are in acting and in that world, you can tell pretty quick who has a background in theater because they are much more technical, and it seems that they're much more students of acting than people who are, you know, I don't want to say just doing movies or TV, but they really understand the broad scope of acting, because when you're standing in the middle of the stage, you don't have anybody to help you.
Right.
It is you being an actor. You're right, Dave. You really do see that in this movie, in these actors.
Well, let's move into this. Are we ready to talk about the rooftop and this big megaphone, or do we have anything we want to mention about this hurtful, scorned poor Elizabeth who tells him, "You better keep your mouth shut"? And it's the only time she gets like really that playful kind of almost teasing voice that she was putting on. All of a sudden turns into that harpy voice for that one line.
Yeah.
And then she goes back to fawning.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good with Elizabeth. I think we've covered that scene.
Just a few comments about Madeline Kahn, you know, because I think this is the last time we see her this week. She's great in this movie. She goes around, she bounces around different vocal accents and intonations and stuff, you know, from her haughty stuff to the sort of the more visceral, and it's just really great because she's just got the operatic voice that is just so good, even when she's just talking and not singing. Have you guys mentioned Yellowbeard at all? Her role in that?
No.
Oh, yeah. Yellowbeard is another one of my favorite comedies. She plays the another sort of rape victim of the main character.
She's got a trend going here. If she's not the Teutonic twit-tit Willow, she's getting banged by people she wasn't expecting to.
Yeah, so and again in Yellowbeard they kind of play it off for humor as well. But in that one, she's playing a British woman, and her accent is so bad.
Really?
In contrast to all the great vocal work she does here and in Blazing Saddles, of course it's probably a bad German accent in that movie, but you can't tell as much. Listening to her do a fake British accent in Yellowbeard it's kind of comical how bad it is.
So Yellowbeard had to be one of her last films. It was 83, early 80s.
She didn't die that early. It wasn't in the 80s when she died.
Late 80s, early 90s. 1999. You're 99,
right. Yeah, it was late
right.
90s. Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that. I've really come to appreciate her much more as an actress as we've broken this movie down.
Oh, I've always had a thing for Madeline Kahn, but again, we're not doing Mel Brooks movies, we're doing Gene Wilder, so High Anxiety, love her role in that. Love her obviously in Blazing Saddles, love her in, which we will get to at some point, Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. She's great. Every time I've seen her, I'm like, she could have been an opera singer, she could have gone the hot, sultry route, but she chose the comedic route for much of her body of work, and she just looks like that kind of person who would be so fun to just hang out with.
Her timing is impeccable.
And she's fearless. She'll try anything on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I do love her. And when you think about it, you're right. This is the last we're going to see of her for a few minutes. She's only in the movie about 6 total minutes. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, really?
That is really hard to believe.
She has basically 2 minutes on the train station. She has 2 minutes. It crosses 2 minutes when she first shows up to surprise Freddy. Maybe it's 3 minutes because she's got the upstairs. And then you've got this scene, so that's 6. And then she's got, the bedroom scene. So maybe that's 7 total minutes in this movie. Yeah. And she chose to pick that smaller role.
As a sidelight, do you know who else was in Yellowbeard? Peter Boyle. He played one of the main characters in Yellowbeard. So it's interesting to see them working together again.
Also Marty Feldman.
Really?
Yep.
Well, and Cheech and Chong.
It's an all-star cast.
Cheech and Chong were in it, too.
Cleese, Eric Idle, Neil from The Young Ones.
See, I remember a trailer or something. Is it supposed to be like a pirate knockoff or a comedic thing like that? Instead of Blackbeard?
It's essentially Monty Python goes pirating.
Okay. Well, then it's Monty Python behind it.
I
can't believe I haven't seen it because I do like that style of humor.
Yeah, Kenneth Mars made an appearance.
Well, it looks like I'm going to have a new movie to watch.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's awesome. That's why Dave. We bring guests on.
That's right.
They teach us everything we don't know.
It's a classic. If you like these types of movies, I think you'll love it.
Well, let's get back to minute 96 here. We are on top of it looks like the overlook to the courtyard on the edge of the castle, and they've set up a makeshift sort of band performance. They're doing some improv. They're doing some open mic night. They've got this giant megaphone, but it looks like they've got like some kind of a cable stretched.
Yeah.
So is it electrical? And if it is, where are they plugged in? Where's their amps? And I didn't know a violin had any pickups.
Well, maybe there's a kite with a key on it off scene that is bringing the electricity in.
I mean, Dave, you said you had a background in music back earlier, playing what did you say, the trombone?
Yeah.
This is odd. Have you ever seen a violin somehow hook into like a megaphone? It looks like there's a cord that you're supposed to have like as a pickup so that way it can be playing what he's broadcasting. Oh, there's a microphone right there that he's in front of. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a microphone stand.
Microphone.
Yeah, I see it.
I mean, I have seen string instruments with pickups and with amplification built in, but I think he's just doing a microphone. Gotcha. Which is odd because you would think he would just, if it was a megaphone, he would just like be in front of the megaphone like the old timey director,
Yeah, this is the oddest looking speaker because it's got like the back end looks like it's got some kind of a powered unit, but then the bullhorn part just extends ridiculously long.
Yeah, and I assume this is where the Beatles got the idea to play on the roof when they did their outdoor concert.
While the violin's playing, and this is that familiar theme of the Transylvanian lullaby that obviously is what's having the effect on the monster. You see, Igor has some really weird ram's horn style instrument that's got like trumpet valves on it. I've never seen anything like this.
Well, knowing Igor, it would have been very odd if he had like a trombone or something normal. He's got to have a ram's horn with holes drilled in it to be his instrument.
Yeah, maybe it's got little trumpet valves, so you can see where he's trying to put his fingers on it. He's getting ready. He actually goes at one point to kind of wet the valve. He does a little test blow in it. He's not going to quite make his musical debut in this minute, but this is Transylvania. There must be some weird music store to go with all the other stuff they've got there.
Yeah, right next to Bob's head shop. It's,
the xylophones, instead of it being like little tubes, it's like bones. I mean, I don't know. What do they... I mean, this is like a crazy town to live in, or a village.
Yeah, this place is off the rails.
Dave, have you ever seen anything like that? A ram's horn with trumpet valves?
No, I love his instrument, but what I love best is he's sitting there in front of a music stand, and he's looking and he's waiting and he's counting the beats, and he's just waiting for his big moment, and I just can't wait till the next minute when he gets it.
Well, the only place I've known of a ram horn as an instrument is in Jewish religious ceremonies. They will blow a ram's horn, but I don't think it's anything like this.
No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I've never seen anything like this.
Doesn't have valve holes in it.
Do you notice compositionally with this shot, while we're making fun of Igor, fingering the valves, with Inga, the only one in white, and she kind of is making that bridge between Dr. Frankenstein and Igor, who are both in much darker colors, and it's a darker background. You can't help but find, even though she's got her back to us, it's a striking pose. While you can tell she's on the lookout. She's worried about, is this going to work? Is the monster going to come?
Yeah, she's definitely fully invested in this. I think she's fully invested in the doctor, she's fully invested in the work, and she's really worried about the monster. But that is a great scene.
It is a really good composition. Again, it's the classic look. It's a wide shot. You got the horn over to the right. Looks like there's another one over to the left behind.
Yeah, there is. There's two.
Freddie and Inga. And yeah, just how dark. It's like Igor is jet black. Freddie is sort of mottled gray black, and then Inga is pure white. That's great.
And I love they've got wind kind of coming off on her hair, kind of just playing with it a little bit. Even a little bit of Gene Wilder's hair is moving. But when she does that, she doesn't move her feet. She kind of looks back over her shoulder at the doctor and has such concern on her face. As much I love Madeline Kahn for her character. I love her as an actress. I have really fallen for Terry Garr's performance in this. To have these icons around her, these really skilled actors, and to have come out of sort of like the beach music background and having worked behind the scenes with the Sonny and Cher show, to be able to hang with these guys and to create a believable character, I think it's just a great little touch here in this scene.
It had to be a dream come true for her. And what a way to really launch your career.
Well, as we begin to wrap this particular minute up, we're going to continue with this scene into tomorrow. Dave, let me ask you, do you have any other notes for minute number 96 that we have not yet hit?
No, that's it for me.
Walt?
No, I think we covered it.
Excellent. Well, Dave, you are our guest, and it is always our pleasure to let our guests do a quick plug for where they can be heard, because, hey, we want everyone to be listening to all of our shows. So tell us a little bit more about where people can learn about the Airplane Minute.
All right. Yeah, the Airplane Minute. We go through the movie Airplane 1 minute at a time. It is found on neosaz.com, which has a multitude of podcasts, mostly pop culture and nostalgia focused. I happen to do another one there called Sequel Harder as well, where we look at good movies and lousy sequels.
Boy, there.
I'm gonna guess. What was the movie Whole Minute guys did? Caddyshack. I'm assuming that would be part of it, because Caddyshack 2 is just abysmal.
Well, it's true, except that for our main feed, we only do movies with more than one sequel for like full franchise type ones. But we do little mini episodes on where there was like a good movie and one bad sequel. And I think the first one we recorded for that was Tron, and Caddyshack is definitely on that list.
Yeah, and I think you could add Ghostbusters to that list. I think that's just...
Yeah.
Ghostbusters 2 is horrible.
A disappointment.
It's an absolute letdown.
Yes.
It's not as... I don't know. I think it's not as bad as all that, but it is definitely not nearly as good as the first one.
I guess it depends which you saw, when you saw it, and how old you were when you saw it. Because I loved the 1984 Ghostbusters, and then I go watch the sequel. I remember we got all of our friends. We were so excited to go see it, and I'm sitting in the theater going, this is not anywhere near as good as the first movie.
No, but there's some good performances like Annie Potts.
Yeah, well, Bill Murray's great in it.
Hi, welcome back to World of the Psychic. I'm Peter Venkman. I'm chatting with my guest, author, lecturer, and psychic, Milton Angland. Milt, your new book is called The End of the World. Now, Can you tell us when it's going to be, or do we have to buy the book?
Well, I predict that the world will end at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve.
This year?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's cutting it a little bit close, isn't it? I mean, just from a sales point of view, I mean, your book is just coming out. You're not going to see any paperback sales for at least a year. It'll be at least another year before you know whether you've got the miniseries or movie of the week kind of possibilities. I mean, just devil's advocate, Milty. I mean, shouldn't you have said, hey, the world's going to end in 1992?
Wait a minute.
Or better yet,
Hey,
1994?
This is not just some money-making scheme, all right? I have a strong psychic belief that the world will end on New Year's Eve.
Well, for your sake, I hope you're right. Okay, but I think my other guest may disagree with you. Elaine, now you had another date in mind.
According to my source, the end of the world will be on February 14th in the year 2016.
Valentine's Day. Bummer. Where'd you get your date, Elaine?
I received this information from an alien. As I told my husband, it was in the Paramus Holiday Inn. I was having a drink at the bar, alone, and this alien approached me. He started talking to me. He bought me a drink, and then I think he must have used some kind of a ray or a mind control device because he forced me to follow him to his room. And that's where he told me about the end of the world.
So your alien had a room at the Holiday Inn, Paramus.
It might have been a room on the spacecraft made up to look like a room at the Holiday Inn. I can't be sure about that, Peter.
Of course not. And that is the whole problem with aliens, is you just can't trust them. Occasionally you meet a nice one, Starman, E.T., but usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard. That's all the time we've got for this week on World of the Psychic. Next week, though, give me Ira. Hairless pets. Weird. Until then, this is Peter Venkman saying, see you then.
Yeah.
he actually looks like he doesn't even want to be part of it.
Right. The overall story is a kind of a dumpster fire, but there's some good moments.
Well, I guess we won't light it totally on fire, but as far as sequels go, it certainly fell from the first one.
Yeah. Well, the more we're talking about it, the more I'm like, we may need a bonus episode. I think I have some things to say.
Walt,
that damn painting. That painting was stupid. That was the dumbest thing in the whole movie.
He's Vigo the Wonderful.
Sir, are you all right?
Why am I drippings with goo?
Why am I zippings with goo?
So I'll just leave it.
All right. So, Walt, where can people learn a little bit more about the Wilder Ride?
It's Monday, so I want to remind everybody that we have a Patreon page, and we have some expenses associated with the podcast, so we would love for you to consider going out to patreon.com/The Wilder Ride. Look at some of the offerings we have there and how you might be a part of our team, and even to help produce the show one time. Also, you can always join us on Facebook, where we have some great discussions going. Go out to our listeners group. You'll want to go to facebook.com/The Wilder Ride. Find our listeners group there. Answer a couple quick questions and join the conversation. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. We've got some great polls out there. We've got people posting all kinds of pictures and questions about Gene Wilder and trivia that they found about him and the other casts. And some, every once in a while, corrections of something Alan or I have to say. Normally
a difference of opinion, maybe.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's a great place to discuss movies in general. We've been sharing a lot of, on this day, 32 years ago or 37 years ago or, even 40-some years ago, anniversaries of the launch of certain movies that we all love and cherish. Hey, everybody, come on back tomorrow because we're going to continue this scene. Dr. Frankenstein, on minute number 97, will be playing the violin. We're going to see, finally, Igor's musical debut. We saw him technically play the piano, but apparently he also knows how to play a trumpet-valved ram's horn. And we will end tomorrow with Frankenstein's monster climbing over the edge of the wall, and then suddenly Dr. Frankenstein yelling, "Don't touch him!" And all of that tomorrow on the Wilder Ride.
I think I love him.
You better not boast to anybody about what we've done.
Can I borrow your ram's horn?
Only 6 or 7?
7 or 8 times and you're ready to go play with the boys. Keep your mouth shut.